alcohol and other substances to cope. And a lot of people report feelings of grief, which is something that is not as clear to some as others, but just sort of a feeling. I know I experienced this in the very beginning, and other people. All of a sudden, people are just sort of feeling very blue, almost even depressed. I'm not quite sure why. Just affecting just a general malaise. And I think a lot of that has to do with this grief, because the fact is, even if you haven't lost someone directly connected to this illness, we've lost a way of life for now and maybe permanently. So that's been something, and you don't always, you don't even always realize it regarding the grief. It's sort of something that can sneak up on you. So if you ever have some of those days where you're really struggling, you may want to think about that might be a symptom. So basically what I'm going to present to you for the next few slides is something that I compiled, not even based on research, which of course I included that, but a lot of this had to do with information that we gathered through what we call our resilience lounges. At Valley Hospital, obviously, many of our staff were deeply affected by the coronavirus. So what we did on a weekly basis, 2 times a week, sometimes and as per needed, we, about 4 of us, or five people at one point, all got together and we provided virtual and sometimes in-person support to our staff. And we call these sessions resilience lounges. And what I've compiled is basically what was reported to be most effective when dealing with coronavirus and so many other things this year. So with that said, next slide, Michael. Okay. Okay, thank you. So basically, I'm just going to go over something what I call the 3 A's of coping, which is just simply awareness, acceptance, and action. I think one of the most important things, thank you, one of the most important things is to be in touch with yourself and even know that you are struggling with something. So many of us, we kind of go through life and on autopilot. We'll have a horrible backache, or we'll feel a feeling, some feelings of grief, or having difficulty sleeping, or really don't want to get out of bed, and we're thinking, oh, just what's going on. And so we'll eat, or overeat, we'll maybe overspend, we'll do all these things to cope, when not realizing that there's something going on that we have to deal with. And I think one of the most important things as humans that we can do at any point is just to face what's going on and just do away with denial. And I say this again because so many people have been struggling, but they're not even aware of it. And of course, we want to, I think that, I over the years, I've been a licensed clinical social worker for, 25, 30 years. And what many people have told me that, that they've tried, you try to escape whatever's going on, what you're feeling, when you're very overwhelmed, but very often, if you don't deal with your feelings, they deal with you. And that's what I mean by we have somatic complaints, we experience a lot of fear, we're having trouble, all the things I talked about before. So just being simply aware of what's going on is very powerful. When I work with people, I will have them sort of do a body scan and just kind of go through their body, and even do it right now, and just find out where is their tension, what's going on, even physically with yourself. It's very powerful. Very often we hold tension. I know I do between my eyebrows or in my, my shoulders, or my stomach hurts or something. So just that's important. Once we're aware of whatever the issue is, and in this case, we're talking about, just being overwhelmed by coronavirus and the after effects, we can then we need to accept what's going on. We simply cannot change certain events or circumstances. Case in point, this virus and the fact that it is continuing to wreak havoc and cause problems. We simply cannot change other people, events, circumstances. But what we can do, step 1, again, be aware, but also accept this situation. Accept that that this is going on, that this is the way it is. We've certainly seen people who are really having a difficult time accepting the fact that we are, kind of overwhelmed as a country, and this is affecting every aspect of our lives, including our economy. But the more you fight that, the more uncomfortable everything is going to be for you. So accepting this situation is key. Doesn't mean we like this situation. And, I often say prior to acceptance, is a host of unpleasant feelings. Very common, as we fight things, or as we're, we're still trying to, bargain with how to get through something, we're really struggling. We're really overwhelmed. But once we kind of totally accept it, it becomes much more manageable. That's the case with any emotional issue. Truly, I've worked with people for so many years in mental health, and how many people I've worked with who have been depressed about being depressed or anxious about being anxious, and once they accept where they're at, that's the first step to healing. Anyway, once we do accept that, when we can take some action, and we'll go to the next slide. Okay, next slide. Oh, thank you. So that's the big thing here, right? So what can we do? How do we respond versus react? How do we, just think about having an argument with someone, and someone said something very unpleasant to you. And if we take a moment and we kind of calm down and we respond and think of what we say, it's very different than just snapping back. And that's the case with a situation like we're in right now with the virus. Okay, Meg. Okay, so these are some of the things that people found to be very helpful, and I'm going to just emphasize. And again, there's a lot of suggestions here. I often tell people, please take what you like and leave the rest. Write down what resonates with you, all right? Sometimes it's like, we just want to do everything at once, but, just kind of focus on what seems to work, or what impacts you the most. A lot of these suggestions sort of seem almost obvious, but they're very powerful and not easy to accomplish. So I just want to say that first and foremost. Okay, so again, sort of what I was saying before, we really want to face the feelings. We want to validate that this is challenging. Again, this is about the awareness and the acceptance. You're blue for a few days, you can't sleep, you're very anxious and nervous. Step one is to go, okay, what's going on? I need to face this. And sitting with these difficulties and this discomfort is really powerful. I worked with a nurse, and this is about 2 weeks ago. And again, at Valley, we only have a few cases right now. We're pretty much holding steady with that, and that's great news. And it does seem that people, the treatment is more effective than it was at the height of what's going on. And that's really great news. But there was a nurse who was feeling extremely anxious about the sort of subtle rise in cases that we had at one point. And she was talking about her anxiety, and what she said that kind of was helping her was that she would lean into her fear. I mean, I love that. I mean, just literally, you have a feeling, you have whatever it is, and you lean into it. You just kind of go with it. And she said, as we were talking with her, she was sort of doing that, and she felt much, much safer, and some of her symptoms alleviated. This is for many people, this is being outside of our comfort zone. When I have worked with people over the years, they would rather have physical pain than emotional pain. It's very difficult. And it's some people will do anything to not feel things. And that's why we see all the isms in our world. I truly believe that. Not only are they physiological, but things like gambling, overeating, even substance abuse has a lot to do with people just being really uncomfortable with their feelings. So it's really important. This takes a lot of self-reflection. It does. It takes sort of an involvement of, to really face what's going on with ourselves, but it often leads to wisdom and healing, and we can heal even with this difficult situation. Okay, next slide, Michael. Thank you. Okay, and this again has to do, I'm repeating myself for a reason because it's really important. How we think about things is so important. Very often, we're on autopilot. We, just go through our days, not thinking about, not really focusing or being aware of our negative thinking. Okay, it just sort of comes at us, this surge of thoughts. I often, and when I work with people, I'll tell them, when you wake up in the morning, I want you just to observe your thoughts. Just simply observe them. It's fascinating. And in the morning, we'll often find a surge of, what do I have to do today? Oh my gosh, I would like to stay home. This one said this, and our thoughts are very pressured and they come at us very quickly. I want you just to observe them over the next couple of days. It's fascinating. And, again, I use the word observe because one of the most effective ways to deal with this intensity is to just watch these thoughts come and go. All right. But it's very important, like I said, with the feelings, is to identify them. Observe those thoughts And then we can take a pause because we really can control them. But this is a practice and it takes some work. And then once we're kind of, observe those thoughts and we don't like what we always see. Very often human beings tend to think negatively. We can replace those negative thoughts. It is possible. This takes practice. I give this example very often, but it's the most, powerful way for me to highlight this. Years ago, I was in a grocery store. I had my two little daughters who were adorable, 2 and 4 years old. We were in the produce aisle and my daughters were giggling and they were laughing and being very loud. And I was thinking the following: they are so annoying. I wish I could go here by myself. Oh, if only they would stop. So on and so forth. Anyway, long story short is a very elderly woman came over to me and she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "Honey, I can see you're struggling right now. I know that you're not enjoying this outing with these beautiful daughters, but let me tell you, this goes so fast. I have great grandchildren older than they are." What I'm trying to say is my thinking was coloring and affecting this wonderful experience of raising these beautiful little girls. And it was happening more than I'd like. So from that day on, I really started to identify when I would start thinking negatively about being a mom and all the work I had to do and so forth and so on. I would observe the thoughts. I would pause. I would literally see the word pause, P-A-U-S-E. I'd spell it out. And then I would replace it with, "These are the best years of my life. These children are gifts." And I'm giving you an example because it takes practice. It takes practice to do this. This is very challenging. Even today when I was going to give this lecture, I have to watch, oh boy, I hope I'm a little nervous about this. I'm anxious. I do this before every presentation and I have to pause and change that. So I just want to share that with you because that has been very effective for a lot of people, how we think about things, even how we think about this virus. Okay, next slide, Michael. Okay, another thing that's been very effective for a lot of our attendees are for people to identify what they're grateful for and make this a habit. People have spoken about we end every session talking about what worked this week and what are you grateful for. And of course, so many people would talk about, I'm grateful that I never got the virus. I'm grateful my loved ones are okay. I'm grateful I even have a job, or I have enough right now, whatever it is. And that really assisted people a great deal. There's a University of North Carolina, they had done the research psychologist had done sort of an experiment, if you will, or they did a study, I'm sorry. Anyway, they did a study and it was called 3 Good Things out of University of North Carolina. And what they did is they had people, they would email, it was all done virtually, all the people that participated in this research study, and they had them write down 3 things they were grateful for every day and what their part was in what they were grateful for. So it couldn't just be the weather. It had to be, I'm grateful for this particular relationship. I'm grateful that I accomplished, this particular job, whatever it was. And they had to write these things down. And again, what their part was it and what their feelings, the feelings and thoughts related to this. And long story short is, what they found is that people who participate in this study and did this for more than about 3 weeks, their feelings of anxiety and depression, they started alleviating. In fact, there was research done that this gratitude list was as effective as taking a mild antidepressant. And the best news was when they checked back in with a lot of the participants, like a year and a half later, they were still feeling improved in their mental health. So this is powerful. Gratitude is powerful. And I often suggest people maybe before bed, okay, write down what they're grateful for. All right, next thing that we have found very helpful, Valley Hospital has a mindfulness based stress management program, as does Ramapo College at the Crane Center. Mindfulness is a pretty popular meditative practice today. It was developed by Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn back in the 60s and 70s he started. And really basically it talks about the power of the moment and focusing one moment at a time. Of course, this sounds like, don't we all do this? Absolutely not. We think about, even as you're listening to me, you might be thinking what you have to do next. A lot of people who have memory issues, especially a lot of my seniors, I work with them on memory, and one of the most powerful tools is when, people forget names all the time. That's a very popular thing to forget. And what I'll tell people is, I want you to focus when you're being told a name. It wasn't like a little project we did. Focus when you're being told a name, and I want you to repeat that name a couple of times. And lo and behold, most people could retain that information, that name. It's very, very effective to stay in the moment. Very worried about something, the next moment you can feel much more comfortable. Oops. How are we doing? Thank you. Oh, I think we're going to go back to the previous slide. But anyway, with mindfulness, I'm back. Basically, it's just a very simplistic way of coping where you focus on the moment. For instance, there's this wonderful activity where we call it grounding, having to do with mindfulness. Where you focus on each of your senses when you're very overwhelmed. This actually can stop an anxiety attack from occurring. Where basically what you do is you focus on two things that you see, two things that you smell, or three things that you smell, two things that you taste, a couple things that you're touching, your sense of touch, and two or three things that you hear. And by doing this, it takes about, I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds, maybe even less. What it does is it decreases your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, and it calms you down. And it's a physiological process. So basically, again, it's very simplistic but very powerful to focus on the moment. Listen, you've made it through every moment. You're making it through this one, even our worst moments we've gotten through. So, and the word pause also is very helpful when you're very overwhelmed. Okay, next slide. Okay, being gentle with yourself. Again, this was really at the height of the pandemic, but many people were talking, on social media. We always do a lot of comparing. People were talking about, oh, this one's cleaning out their closet, this one is starting a new project, learning a new language, running a marathon, who's doing this? During this year, which has been, overwhelming for so many reasons, I think now more than ever, it's important to be gentle with yourself. For some people, especially at the height of this, just getting up, taking a shower, and getting through the day was a lot for some people, and was enough. You do what you can do. And if you are running marathons, or if you did start a new hobby, that's great. That's wonderful. But you be gentle with yourself, and you do what you can do. You gauge yourself. You do the basics. That's when we work with staff. That was really very powerful for them to hear, is just to get through the day and do the best you can, but just do enough, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. And even the smallest accomplishments are huge right now. Again, we're talking about the COVID virus. We're talking about a lot of, unrest in our society. We're talking about, an election year, which is always stressful. Just getting through is enough. Okay, next slide. Humor, again, I know it's very personal, but, I love that there's a quote that, nothing makes you feel better like a good laugh with a friend. And I really do believe that has been very, very helpful for people. People talk about binging through Netflix and podcasts. And let me tell you, watching some funny stuff has been very, very helpful. And, definitely a lot of staff member when they were going through a lot of this. And I know for myself too, I would tune into something like The Golden Girls or The Office and just laugh. Or just finding humor in things. We can find humor in most everything. I worked with a psychiatrist for a lot of years, and he said, I'm going to tell you that the most important thing you can tell your patients is, do not watch the news before bed if you want a good night's sleep, and watch it minimally if you want to feel okay. Turn on Seinfeld or Everyone Loves Raymond, and you'll feel a lot better. So I just want to throw that in there because it was something that was popular. Next slide, okay. Okay. And just again, this has to do with thinking, but keeping things in perspective. The thing about this year is it's been very, very difficult. But the fact is, we're 6 or 7, almost 7 months in, and we've made it through. We've done okay. A lot of people have learned a lot. And, we can think of it in terms of growth. Americans, again, this has been really hard. And we've, a lot of, like, for instance, my I work with a lot of seniors, and so many people who, abhor technology, could barely get into their email, are now on Zoom meetings and Teams meetings and doing amazing things, So we've learned a lot this year, and we've made it through, and I think it's important to keep that in perspective and give yourself credit. I hear a lot of people say, oh, the world's going to, heck in a handbasket, and you know what? We could be on the precipice of a whole new day. It depends upon how we want to think about things. How it's, that growth mindset, which is a big buzzword right now. It's the story we tell ourselves in perspective. And again, I remember so many of our staff people saying, you know what? I'm not sick. My family's not sick. I have a job, and I'm going to keep that in the forefront of my mind. And it helped. Okay, next slide, please. And again, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, love more than you know. How have you coped before? This has absolutely been challenging and unprecedented, like I said, but you've gotten through difficult times. What worked before? Do that. Of course, if it's a healthy thing. I work with people who, have gone through, terrible loss and tragedy. And, for them, they tapped into their religion or spirituality, or they, wrote, journaled on what was going on. Whatever worked, please do that. And remember, you are strong. You're getting through it. It's an important thing to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Connection, ironically, right, with all the social distancing, as they call it, we've had to do this year, which I really refer to as physical distancing, because we can still get together. We just have to do so smartly. But anyway, connection and hike, this is a Danish concept, and basically all this means is community is really important, and human connection is vital. The countries, a lot of the Scandinavian countries, what do they see? 3 months, couple months a year of light, and even though it's 24 hours a day, most of the time things are very dark in those countries by like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock latest, and yet there's some of the happiest people in the world, and a lot of that is attributed to connection. That's very important. So what can we do here? Obviously, I'm speaking to the choir, you're on with me, but people have found different ways through Zoom, FaceTime, Microsoft Teams, there's House Party, there's a lot of ways we can connect. I love that, a friend of ours is living in a condominium complex, and everyone's goes out on their balcony right after dinner, 6:37, and they all kind of chat, and they've been doing this for a while since the weather got nice. See a lot of people just walking around and connecting the best they can in neighborhoods. You can email, you can call, but what I'm really trying to emphasize here is, even if you're an introvert, connection is key. We are meant to connect. Isolation is not healthy for anyone. So please continue that. Please make sure you do. You're not alone, and we can help each other. So next slide, please. And being flexible, of course, that's something else a lot of people spoke about. Those who were so upset that they had to, stay in their homes, or, they couldn't go out to dinner anymore. They had to physically distance, wear a mask. The people who fight these things are the ones having many more difficulties and a lot more depression, anxiety. We have to go with the flow right now. We may not like it, but it is just something we have to do. And it's just for now. I do believe that things will change in 2021. They're already changing. But if you can be flexible and continue with this, it'll help. It'll help a lot. We have to be open to new ideas, new ways to socialize, and a lot of people are. And I'll tell you what, if you look at your sort of resume for, coping, you're going to say, I did a lot this year. I changed a lot. Okay, next slide. Go ahead. I know we have to move on. A lot of people, I don't know if you were aware of this, but at Valley Hospital, all the staff were provided with meals for every shift during the height of COVID. So basically, our staff was eating better than ever, and a lot of that had to do with the kindness and altruism of the people through our service area. Every town provided restaurants would provide wonderful meals funded by all these towns, and it made such a difference to the staff. And I'm good friends with a couple of people from different towns who said that putting together these fundraising activities and raising money for the towns and providing these meals, it felt wonderful. It felt like they had some control over what was going on. And it was one of the most positive experiences of the last month. So giving, kindness, gratitude, authentically being happy for others, this all sounds very fluffy. It works. It's very powerful when you can give it away. You know, I work with a gentleman who said he started up Meals on Wheels when he had some time, and he started to do some Zoom calls with people who just really didn't have a lot of people through churches to connect with. So those things help a lot. Okay, next slide. And again, I mentioned this before, whether it be religion, nature, yoga, meditation, a lot of people have developed more of a spirituality, or turned to their spirituality, and really have been kind of questioning their values and their beliefs through all this. This is what a lot of difficult times do for many. You know, after a tragic loss, a serious illness, they will turn inward or to their higher power, however you want to say it, and they will derive a lot of strength from that journey. It's pretty powerful. Some people think that's what this is all about, you know, all the lessons. It just depends upon your way of thinking. But I do believe that whether you're a religious person or spiritual or not, you know, asking yourself some questions about, why am I here? What's this teaching me? You know, can I do some meditation or deep breathing or yoga? Maybe that'll help. It's helped many. Okay, next slide. The thing our doctors always tell us to do, right? Exercise, move it, get moving, has been very, very helpful. Once the weather became nicer, many people spoke about an improvement in their mood because they were able to get out and run, bike, walk, whatever it was. Very important. When you exercise, it assists with not only, as we've always heard about, you know, our mood, you know, our moods, and improving our moods, due to certain neurotransmitters getting through one part of the brain to another, but it helps us with memory and focus too. Whatever you do, do that. Okay, next slide. Go ahead. Just trying to think of time. How am I doing? Oh my goodness. Okay. And also being curious, learning about things. A lot of people took this time to learn about new language and discover talents they never had, whether it be, you know, writing, reading, or, you know, or becoming more familiar with a lot of issues going on to the world or history. But that's been a way of coping. All right, next slide. Go ahead. And I mentioned this before, but it bears mentioning again because of the power of writing things out, journaling. Great thing to do before bed to kind of slow down the, you know, like I told you, the obsessive thought patterns that many of us deal with, or the pressured thoughts. Just keeping a journal beside your bed, or if you're, you know, more into technology, you know, whether it be your phone or tablet, writing down what's going on with you. But I do think that actually writing is very, very therapeutic. Keep track of your growth. It can be a creative process, you know, also, but I will say this, that I worked with a woman who had trouble with insomnia, and she actually would call it her God journal. She'd write down whatever she was worried about or had to do the next day. And I would say over the next few weeks, she started sleeping better. So it's powerful. Go ahead, next slide. If you need extra support, so what? You know, it's almost vogue at this point to get more help. It's really, really important if you're really struggling more than a few weeks of really, you know, feeling down, not being able to sleep at all, you know, not eating, overeating, just, you know, not wanting to do anything. It's okay to turn to someone for support. Maybe it's a rabbi, pastor, maybe it's a counselor, maybe it's, you know, getting some, a light dose of an antidepressant or medication along with a counselor. Whatever, you know, a lot of times those things are temporary, and they can have an incredible impact on well-being. Most people will experience anxiety in their life. A lot of people experience depression in their life, but many, many, many people, their symptoms do alleviate once they get help. Okay, next slide. And other things, you know, storytelling, you know, people will tap into their creative juices such as painting, poetry. I will say getting out into nature has helped people. Also 20 minutes per day, even though we're always told to be careful of the sun, we need some. We do need some. Make sure you're nourishing yourself well, and limit the news, guys. I think that's number one. And please remember that habits take some time to develop. You know, I would suggest, as I said in the beginning, you know, whatever I've spoken about, I hope you'll maybe, you know, incorporate that into your life or your daily ritual. But remember, don't overwhelm yourself. You know, pick one or two things and do it for a week or two. then it'll become a habit. And next slide, I think I just say that. Oh, I love this. This has been helpful to a lot of our staff members. That quote about Mr. Rogers, remember when when he was little and he'd be overwhelmed, and his mother would say, look to the helpers. And we can do that, ourselves. Who do you admire that, got through this awful tragedy? Who did you admire? Look to them. Look at, the calm that they provided, all the, for some people it might be a physician or a politician or whoever, kind of, focus on those people that gave you comfort. Who helped you in the past, and be a helper if you can do so. That'd be wonderful. And the next slide, I think I'm just, yeah, I just say that again, take what you like, leave the rest. But if you do nothing, nothing changes. If you throw something in and change, you'll feel better, And next slide. I think I just say, I love this quote because I have to remember it myself. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. That's Mario Forleo. And, so if I can say anything, if you are going to start writing, or if you're going to start walking or doing a gratitude list, try to do it consistently. That's when it will become effective, not if we do, a couple days and then not do it the next few days or whatever. That's my presentation. Does anyone have any, anything to say, any questions? Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Sue. So if anyone has a question, just click the raise your hand icon on the top right of your screen, and you can ask Sue a question. Otherwise, thank you for joining us all today, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's my pleasure.
Okay, I don't see any questions, Sue, so thank you so much for doing this presentation today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Everyone take care. Stay well.
Thank you, Sue. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.